Now, there is this video that I'm quite fond of on the internet, and this is it. It's pretty stupid, right?
See, the interesting thing about this video is it proves Einstein's theory of relativity. See, if we box the guy on the trampoline, then he's unable to tell that he's moving horizontally, as every time he jumps, he lands back to the center of the trampoline. See, the thing is, from our perspective, we can tell that he's moving horizontally, because we can see the trucks move past. See how the idea of what we view as true is manipulated based on from which perspective we see it?
The existence of different religions also proves this theory. Most religions cover topics such as the basis of the afterlife, but each religion varies from one another because of each one's founder had a different context. The same idea could be applied to any literary works, including the literary works of Ted Hughes and Sylvia Plath. So, in a brief nutshell, the analysis by birthday letters and aerial by the once married Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes allows us to garnish the dualistic nature of resonances, dissonances, as well as the identification of how contextual shifting or different experiences creates a medium for the influencing of varied themes and values. The dissonances between the two texts may be superficially examined with the core purpose of the respective pieces of poetry. With Hughes, he seeks the ability of sovereignty by dissonancing previous set public image of himself, whilst Plath's poetry is centered on gaining sovereignty, on gaining identity, gained from the separation of himself from other assertive forces in her life. Now, to fully understand what these texts are talking about, we first have to understand the contextual background behind them. See, I just love Vegemite, but if you give the same thing to an American, he'll probably throw up. Now, why? What causes this variance in opinion? See, the American and I, we have different contexts. I love Vegemite because of mine. He doesn't because of his. Now, with Plath and Hughes, they don't talk about Vegemite. No. Three primary contextual influences that interact with both aerial and birthday letters includes Plath's heritage, social role implications for women and men during the Cold War era, as well as Plath's own Electra complex. However, with Ted Hughes being a man, he is unable to experience this societal confinement based on his gender, whilst Plath did experience it. Much like how varied contexts can influence one's taste on Vegemite, varied context influence understanding of such societal confinement.
See, with Plath, the stylistic conventions embarked upon for her poetry is reminiscent to that of confessional poetry. This provides a direct and sparks an insightful conversation within the audience. Plath's style of confessional poetry sparks internal thought and monologue within the reader, or it sparks a textual conversation.
Now, understanding Plath's contextual backgrounds, her displeasure in the role women were societally confined to during the interwar and post-war periods is observable within her works, such as Fever 103, where Plath displays her displeasure with the roles in the line, pure. What does it mean? The tongues of hell. The purity in question is in regards to the purity of a woman, a trait that was deemed desirable and often considered necessary at the time. The use of intertextuality of the Bible is used to personify Plath's displeasure for such societal constraints as seen in that quote. The biblical allusion of the tongues of hell personifies the destructive nature of an evil idea. The biblical allusion is in reference to the verse James 3:6 in the Bible, where the tongue is described as the root of all evil in the body, as it is through the tongue which evil thoughts and ideas may be conveyed, spoken, and spread about. Plath's desire to break free from societal coercion is also attributed in The Arrival of the Bird Box, where Plath creates continual analogies between Pandora's box and Plath's desire to break such societal constraints and to allow her creative persona to break free, as seen with I will set them free, the box is only temporary, where the use of a first-person perspective alludes to Plath's breaking free from societal positioning of Plath and other women.
The idea of obtaining individuality and control over oneself by dismantling societal roles and put forth by Plath is directly juxtaposed by Hughes's poetry. With birthday letters, Hughes is likewise reverberating the ideas of obtaining individuality. However, birthday letters addresses the desire of sovereignty to be achieved by attempting to distance one's public image. In this case, Hughes's own public image, which was recreated by Plath, from society, thusly gaining his own individual sovereignty. The dissonances between the two texts is observable via comparison of the two. With Hughes's birthday letters, the minutiae of Hughes's image is characterized with a picture of Otto, where Hughes remarks the vigorous relationship dynamic between both Otto Plath, Sylvia's father, and Ted Hughes, implying that Otto Plath and Hugo are now intertwined as a result of Sylvia Plath. For metaphorical representation by Sylvia being a candle casting Hughes's shadow. Antedating contextual applications provides us with the understanding of Plath's electric complex, which affects Plath's perception of Hughes as well as all other male figures within her life. It is in a picture of Otto where Hughes comments on this electric complex, inferring to the audience that Plath's perception of Hughes isn't genuine, whether it is her father, Otto, that she's perceiving and talking about within her poems. Hughes converses with the audience, attempting to invoke challenge to denigration of him set forth by Plath, attempting to escape his own sense of societal imprisonment. Such is observable within the line, "Your ghost, inseparable from my shadow. As long as your daughter's words can stir a candle, she could hardly tell us apart in the end. Your portrait here could be my son's portrait." Hughes continues to acknowledge that public perception of him and challenges the consoling association with the phrase, minister monk. The term monk referring to someone who has not achieved society's standards. With this, Hughes is directly addressing and stating that he is not living up to Sylvia Plath's standards of him, that he is not as infernal as described by Plath. This notion of challenging societal standards is also witnessable in Red, with the phrase, "The jewel you lost was blue." It's creating a symbolic reference to the atonement status that Hughes has reached, with Hughes being the jewel and Plath losing control of Hughes and Hughes's public image with a symbolic less of such jewel. Further contextual conversation occurs between the two texts when discussing the idea of rebirth, of transcendence. However, unlike other issues, assumptions, and perspectives between the two, both Hughes and Plath reach a resonance with such. It is in Red where a tonal shift of Hughes's poetry is observable, with a shift from vigorous defense of his identity to calm recognition of the context that paved way to his public perception of him. It is in Red where Hughes transcends public opinion of him. Within Lady Lazarus, it is use of the phoenix motif which serves as a metaphor for Plath's ability to transcend, where she transcends through her use of poetry beyond contextual limitations. Thusly, it is for the comparative study of the two texts where the dissonances regarding the turbulent nature of their contextuality, regarding Plath's electric complex, as well as the relationship between Hughes and Plath, the existence and use of textual conversations reveal such dissonances on disparate issues, such as the desire of obtaining sovereignty and self-governance.